Welcome back. It's a preview Saturday's Premier League match between Stoke City and Tottenham Hotspur at Britannia Stadium. Pascal, start with the away side. Disappointing home defeat to Manchester City last time out.
Yeah, it was obviously a big game for them if they wanted to sort of get back into the top four. But they started the game brilliantly, didn't they? I think in the first 5 minutes they had 3 good chances. I think there was Dia with the header from the corner, and then Harry Kane hit wide as well. When the form he's been this season, you would have expected him to at least get on target and test Joe Hart, but couldn't do so. After that, sort of City came back into it. They had a couple of chances. Aguero flashed that amazing volley wide, and then there was the penalty incident, which Spurs, I thought they were very, very lucky there. Lloris comes out, slips over Aguero. It wouldn't have been the easiest chance. He would have had to try and stick it in from a tight angle, but he was going onto the ball, and it was a clear foul from Vertonghen. Definitely clipped Aguero's leg, and not quite sure how the referee or linesman didn't see that one. So they got away with that, but Aguero did settle it in the end. He's got an amazing record against Spurs. I think he scored 8 in the last 4 games against them, so he's averaging 2 a game against Spurs, and it was a brilliant goal. Spurs were on the attack. Joe Hart launches it out to Silva down the right. He goes forward. Aguero beats the offside trap, and Lloris. You could always say about goalkeepers, you shouldn't get beat at your near post, but when the finish is like that, he hit right into the near top corner there. And I think Lloris, he went down. You expect the striker to go across you from there, and I think you just got to credit Aguero for a great finish there, and that proved to be enough. But you look at the attempts at the end of the game. Spurs had more attempts than City. They certainly had a lot of chances, and it really put a massive dent in their top 4 hopes. There's no real chance they can get up there now. They're 7 points behind 4th place, and look at where they are on the table. I think they now just want to try and finish 5th or 6th. They're 3 points behind Liverpool in 5th, 1 point above Southampton, below them in 7th. So 5th or 6th, get into Europe again, and maybe next year try and have a better campaign in Europa League. But it doesn't look like they'll be getting the Champions League this season.
No, it certainly doesn't. You wonder whether that's really enough for the fans, the chairman, everything. I think Sherwood said last season, didn't he, when he was there, everyone's talking about the top 4, but are they really going to push on? Are they really good enough to get in there? You wonder whether last season, obviously they finished 6th on 69 points. They've got 58 points at this stage. Obviously they're not going to reach last season's total, and you probably say it has to be a disappointment. Obviously Sherwood, Pochettino was brought in to, if he was ranking his marks out of 10 this season, you probably go around the 6th, wouldn't you? He's done okay in certain stages, but they've had some good wins away from home. But you look at their fixtures, and a lot of those goals where they won away from home were later on. So if they don't score those goals, maybe they'll be even further down. But if they finish 7th, I think it'll be really disappointing, because you talk about, I think they need another big summer, don't they? Obviously got Kane up there now. Let's talk about Soldado maybe going out of Adebayor's on big wages. They need a real turnaround in terms of, I think they need another defender, another centre midfielder, a top draw. Mason and Bentaleb, have been decent, but you probably need a top draw one in there. Paulinho's obviously gone off the boil. So last season 6th. If they finish 6th again, no real progression, but they can do it. They've got money to spend, so if they have a big summer, maybe they can push the top 4 next season.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the away wins they've had this season. There have been some impressive ones. I think they've won 8 times away from home as well, so that's a pretty good total. But it's the 6 times they've lost home. 6 home defeats. When you're a team like that, that shouldn't really be happening. If you've got real top 4 ambitions, you need to sort of have quite a formidable home record, and they haven't quite done that. And one of those defeats they had was when they played Stoke at White Hart Lane. They lost 2-1 to Stoke at White Hart Lane, and that's certainly one of the disappointing games they've had this season, and that's who they come up against here. But yeah, the 8 away wins is good, but they just haven't quite had that consistency to really be sort of proper top 4 challengers. They've never quite been there. First half of the season, Southampton were genuine top 4 contenders, but Spurs, obviously Southampton, the club that Pochettino left, but Spurs have never quite been there. They've always been sort of around that sort of 5th, 6th, 7th spot, and it would take a monumental, run of form to finish the season, and one of the top 4 sides to really have a bad dip at the end. So they're not going to get into the top 4. And like you said, not too much progression from last season. So even though there's been some positive signs, obviously the emergence of Kane is probably the biggest one out of all of them. Certainly backward steps elsewhere. So plenty to work on over the summer.
Plenty to work on. I think the same could be said for Stoke. They've had a good season, but recently tailed off a little bit. Last time out against Swansea, it was one of those games where they're 2 teams, when they're battling for the top 8 at the moment. Obviously Swansea are there at the moment, look like they're going to finish 8th. They've got West Ham in and around as well, and it was sort of, those 3 teams have been there for a while, haven't they, in that sort of stage of the table. And the game itself was, obviously Stoke finished with 10 men, got Mark Wilson sent off, no real complaints about that. It was a clear foul for the second yellow card, and Swansea took a little time to get their football going, but good first goal, wasn't it? Montero heading in at the back post, and then Shelby, who's had a great season, setting up Key. I think Key's their top scorer now in the league. He's had a really good season. I think he's on about 8 goals in the league. You talk about from a central midfield player, I think he goes under the radar a bit. But Stoke, I think they're struggling without their key players, aren't they? Obviously Bojan, we mentioned him in a while. He's been out for a while. Victor Moses, obviously, as well. He's been a big player for them. He's been out. Going forward, Peter Crouch has been on the bench. Juice contributed here and there, but at the back, I think there was poor defending in that Swansea game. Mark Hughes wouldn't be too happy, but he did admit after the game that they just weren't good enough in terms of the Swansea game. So deserved to lose, but if they get beat here again, it might tail off into a disappointing end of the season, but it'll be keen to back to well winning ways here.
Yeah, definitely. I think Stoke, you look at the sort of club that they are and the players they've got, you have to say that sort of them pushing for sort of a lower top half, sort of mid-table finish is pretty solid from them. They're 10th at the moment. They do look pretty safe there, but you wonder what their ambition is, where they think they can go. I think they'll probably look at what Southampton have done this season and maybe think, if we can maybe spring a surprise next season, we want to be, next year's Southampton. But they certainly need to sign. I think midfield is a big area for them. There's not loads of creativity in that midfield. Charlie Adam, he's had a good couple of months, scored some fantastic goals, obviously. But you look at Nzonzi, he's a real powerhouse in there. But in terms of creativity, there's a bit of a lack there. They have been unlucky with injuries. You mentioned Moses and Bojan there. I think they're the two big losses for them. Luckily for them, by the time they lost those players, they were already, fairly safe in mid-table because, the way they've gone of late, not great. They've only won one of their last 3 games at home, so that's usually a place where they're quite strong. But at home this season, they haven't been quite strong. It's sort of been more balanced in terms of home and away wins this season, but considering in the past, the Britannia Stadium used to be one of the most feared places to go in the league, but it hasn't quite been that way this year. So they'll certainly hope to, impress here against a Spurs side who, like we've said, they haven't been great of late. Both these sides they're not having great ends to the season, and I think both managers will say to their players, "Look, I really want a performance out of you here because it hasn't been great of late." So it could be quite a good game.
Yeah, the sort of end of the season as well was a bit. I mean, they played Burnley away. Burnley might be down at that stage. They finished with Liverpool at home, so Liverpool might still be in the top 4 race at that stage. Might have to go there and win. Like I say, last season, finished 9th. Finishing around there again, it's difficult to say, they haven't progressed, like I say, because they have been hit with injuries. So it's another big game, between two sides. We're keen to get back to winning ways. So what's your call prediction?
I think it's a really hard game to call. Like I said, I think it could be quite a good game. Both sides haven't been great of late, and I think they'll certainly want to improve in this one. And I want to go for a 2-2 draw in this one.
2-2 draw. Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with a draw. I think there'll be just slightly less goals. I'm going to go 1-1. So both see this being a draw. Thanks for joining us.